Good morning, Steph. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad you're here to talk all things flower frogs and some other things too. So, do you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself so people know who you are and introduce your businesses?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Stephanie Duncan. Formerly, I am president of Floral Genius, and Floral Genius is the only US manufacturer of metal flower frogs. So we make three distinct styles. We make your normal pin holders. You'll see these kind of standard in a lot of design studios. Then we make a pin cup, which is essentially a pin holder inside this very watertight, very heavy vessel. And then the third style, we're actually the only people in the world that make the hairpin holder. And this has like such a cool story. Um, but this one I love, love, love. This is absolutely our most
That's
popular.
my absolute favorite.
They are so addictive. And I
They are.
tell people that. Like I'm like, when you get these, just be real careful because once you start, it's very hard to stop. I personally love these as a non like real designer, like not classic
Mhm.
trained designer. This is my go-to every single time. I love, love, love that, love it. So,
Two. I
okay,
have some questions now already. Can you tell
yeah,
the three of them? Because then I want to say why they're fun for like beginner designers.
yes, I absolutely can. So, it all started in 1936 with not me because
Really?
yeah, I know. No, I just look great for my age. Um, so in 1936, a lady named Ida Sinclair, she was a garden club lady. She loved flowers. She loved arranging. She was having a terrible time trying to find a flower holder that really worked for her.
Mhm,
And back then, you got to think they were using, yes, they had the pin holder Kenzans,
mhm,
but they also were using like the glass ones
mhm.
and, the ceramic ones that just they're great, but they don't give you that real control that
Yeah.
I was looking for. So she came home from her garden club one day, and her son was in the garage melting lead to make fishing
Sure.
sinkers because that's what they do in the 30s. And she actually just took a hairpin out of her hair and put it in the lead, and then she goes, and she took out another one, and she's like, huh. And she's like, I think I might have something here. So she made a prototype. And when she
Mhm.
made her prototype, she took it to her garden club and immediately got like 20 orders. So she was like,
What?
I think I have something here. So fast forward a few years, she actually patented the whole design of the hairpin holder. We have a really cool copies of those patents on
Wow.
genius.com and our sister company hhfshop.com. Um, and so basically she patented everything. She also had was a woman owned business who
Yeah.
employed all but one woman. So she had
Wow.
a man casting for her, but she employed about seven women and they called them Ida's girls.
Oh,
And I love it. And they would sit around and set hairpins and paint and essentially make these things. And the only time that she ever stopped was in the 40s when she had to surrender all of her medals for the war effort.
wow.
So then, but as soon as she could get back in business, she had a whole little foundry out of her, she was at first in her garage, but then she like moved into a whole nother building. So,
Wow.
for her to build this business, especially in the
Mhm.
time that it was
Yeah,
in manufacturing as a woman, employing women, I think it's just so inspirational. So,
totally.
yeah, and then in the 50s, in 1956, I think it was, she sold the company to um Dorothy Biddle and
Okay.
Rod Johnson, who was her son. So the Dorothy Biddle service was a garden, like a mail order catalog for gardening supplies, and it was very big
Wow.
through I would say, really in its heyday, 80s, early 90s. And then in the 2000s, it actually switched hands, or it's late 2000s. So
Mhm.
they call the 2010s.
I don't know.
Whatever that decade was, Lynn was like, I'm getting old. I'm trying to get out of this business. So um, we caught wind that she was going to actually take all of the manufacturing for the hairpins, and they were also making the pin holders to the scrapyard.
My God.
And my sister and I were like, No, you don't. And so there's another story there, but that's how Floral Genius started.
Wow. So I have so many things. Did in like the 50s when it changed hands to the Biddles
Mhm.
and did it maintain popularity? Did the frogs maintain popularity? Because I feel like that's the time, that floral foam started to come on. And in my head, I picture that is when people sort of lost not interest even, but we're just like, wowed by floral foam and sort of, using that. Because a lot of the people that we encounter both in the shop and in our community are like, well, I have frogs, but I don't really know how to use them because I've just never had like training or opportunity. So
Right.
did they maintain sort of popularity through the beginning of floral foam?
I would say clearly no, they
Yeah.
didn't. Right? So a lot of people, yeah, definitely went towards floral foam. I mean, this
Yeah.
was like the era of like TV dinners and stuff. Like, yes,
Yes.
we did. And now women are going into the workforce.
Yeah.
So yeah, things had to be a little
Ease.
easier.
Right.
And so they did it really, right?
Yeah.
So it was actually, for them maybe a blessing because
Mhm.
of the fact that they had, a larger kind of garden center business, and then a small part of what they were doing was keeping these flower frogs alive.
Right.
And so it was definitely, I would say, more of a novelty that
Mhm.
they were selling into garden centers, because
Yeah.
they also wholesaled. So like a lot of their customers were these like gardens, these brick and mortar garden centers, garden shops, floral
Yeah.
shops, where people were shopping for more like floral themed gifts and not
Yeah.
necessarily like tactical tools.
Right.
And we definitely noticed that when we took the business, even in not tip, we bought it. Okay, I paid for it. There's no take. Um, when we I keep saying it, took over the business. How's that?
Mhm.
In 2017, looking at their customer list, that was still very much their customer base.
Right.
Very few florists. Very
Wow.
florists, right. And so it was really exciting for Jess and I to get out there and be like, hey, did you guys know that this little hairpin holder existed?
Yeah.
Um, and also, hey, did you know that like you could get really, really, really good flower frogs? Because, and we'll
Right.
talk about that later, but kind of talking about the difference between the flower frogs that are on the market. Um,
Mhm.
we take a lot of pride in ours, and and I'm going to be biased, but I mean, I understand I'm biased, but ours are
Yeah. Yeah.
good.
I think it's so when you started reaching out to florists, like after you bought the business, were you finding that they were using frogs already and they just weren't yours, or they weren't using them and you guys were sort of introducing them to designing with frog mechanics?
Yeah, so a little bit of both.
Mhm.
It was florists that were using frogs, hated the frogs that they had. Because they knew like essentially like if they wanted really good ones, you get them
Yeah.
from Japan.
Right.
And wow, that's really great that we can get good ones here in the US and it doesn't cost me an arm and a leg to procure
Yes.
them. For the pin holders, and then on the hairpins, like, yeah, they were like, what is this thing? And
Yeah.
so we spent a lot of time, doing introductions. And honestly, one of the things that we did, which I think really helped us a lot with getting the word out about them, was that we actually went to some, larger designers, the Steve Moores, the Sue
Yeah.
McCleary, Holly Chapel, and we said, like, hey, take these products and tell us what you hate about them.
Yeah.
Like, we want to know, like, honestly, like, we know what we like, but like
Right.
for large and for different business model types, like, we really wanted to know, like, do you
What
love what you
doesn't
hate?
work?
Right. And it's amazing how when you have a good product, it's not that hard to market it, right?
Yeah.
So like they started using them and we're like, oh my gosh. And naturally, like people, when you like a product, you don't
Yeah.
you're not endorsing anybody. You're actually just saying, I really like this
I
product and
love
I
this.
you'll
Right.
like it too. And so that's been, really helpful for us, honestly. Like
Mhm.
we the products sell themselves. And I hate it, like that's not totally true. Like, I mean, as a business owner,
Sure.
every business person will be like, that's a lie. But they really do. And it goes to show you that like, you know, when you are when you're in business, like having a good product
Yeah.
really helps.
Quality is a
Yeah.
huge seller. It is.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's what we maintain for sure. Like that's our number one priority is value, 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 value.